And so tremendous value to us. We've been there about 4 years. The park is why we moved to that area. It's been a tremendous value. And I want to say, first of all, thank you to talk to Mr. Bard on the phone, and to all of you. I wanted to say thanks for the improvements that y'all have made there and the attention you give to the park. It has truly been a great asset to the community. I was just thinking, we have actually made some of our most significant friends meeting them at the park. So we really appreciate the park. And that's one of the reasons we come today, or I've come today. Actually, my neighbor, Mr. Leo, is here too. We've heard that there's hopefully going to be some improvements at the park because of a grant. And we're glad to hear about that. Thank you, Ms. King, for giving me a phone call to tell me about that. But one of those improvements is a concern to us. And we've heard that the city is considering taking down a lot of big trees around the children's play area. They're big, beautiful, mature trees. Some of them are smaller. And that causes us great concern. We heard that the reason is because of their roots growing in the children's play area. And we certainly understand, we want children's safety to be the highest priority. But right under that, we want the priority to be to keep the beautiful trees, if at all possible. I talked to Mr. Bard on the phone, and I appreciate his explanation. But I would like to invite the city to do a careful assessment of those roots, because, and I'm going to show you a little diagram that I made that will hopefully just give you some approximation. I based the diagram off of Google Maps, and you can see some big oak trees on the side here, some smaller trees in the middle, and another big oak tree on the side. And if you carefully look at those roots, you'll see that the majority of them are coming from one of these smaller trees. And I would hope that after careful consideration, you would find that it's not necessary to take down all of the big mature trees that provide so much, not just beauty, hiding the ugly power lines, but also providing a lot of shade for the moms and dads that bring their kids to the park on hot summer days. So I'm just begging the city to please look at those more carefully. Even if taking down a tree is the only way to deal with the roots, I think probably you'll see that they're coming from that one tree and that the others could be saved. There is one root over here that's obviously coming from this, but that root has been exposed after kids have swung on the swing and their feet drag. And that root is about 6 inches below the normal surface of the rest of the play area. So I think that if you restore the soil there, that it would cover the root and that wouldn't be a problem at all. And then I want to go a step further and suggest that instead of spending the money on taking down the trees and building artificial shade, as Mr. Cumberlander said was an idea, I think that I did a little bit of research on playground surfaces, and I think that what I'd love to see is that area covered not just with more wood mulch or wood chips, but a rubberized playground surface that would cover the roots permanently, or maybe after they're extracted. I think the trees could still be there, and then use the money to put a surface down with rubberized mulch with a bonding agent or something like that. And I looked at the cost, and that would cost around $30,000 or so. I mean, maybe more or less, but I think that the cost of removing the trees and artificial shade could be used on that. There's other improvements that I'd like to talk about. I'm not going to take more time though, but I'll mention one, and that is there's a low spot where there's a perpetual mud puddle on the walking track. And I'd love to see attention be given to that to somehow fix that. That would be great. There's other ideas, but I'll save those for another time. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you for coming. Is there any other public comment? Come right on up, state your name and your address.
Leo Swartwood. I live at I live at 306 Mapleton Drive. We actually built a house on the corner across from the park 7 years ago. And I, like Paul, have met some of the best friends that I've met since I've been there under the shade trees at the park. And I'm here to argue for the shade trees because they don't grow overnight. Once you just take one of those big trees down, it's gone. And the natural shade, I think, is a lot better than artificial shade to me. And it's just a gathering place under the trees there where the benches are. That's where people like to gather and talk and spend time and build friendships. So I do appreciate y'all looking at the park though and suggesting improvements on the track and other things. It was mentioned that there was a suggestion of putting lights around the park so people could walk late at night. I don't really favor that myself because I don't want to attract late night people at 12 midnight. I don't see people walking in the park at real late at night anyway. But that would just be my preference, not to have unnecessarily lights around the park for the evening walking. So those are the good things, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Is there anyone else? Hey, we don't get usually public comment at recreation. Thank you. All right. Up next, we have reading and approval of the minutes. You got that in your packets. I have a motion to approve. I will second it. Discussion? Any corrections? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it, 2-0. Up next, we have report from our recreation director.
Here, tell you a little bit what's going on with recreation. Senior center is the funding that was given got by the state. The senior center floor is down. We've got the painting done. We start with bathrooms probably in 5 to 10 days. The doors are out. We're at P right now for the bids. Matthew's working on the roof. I think that's about to get selected. So it looks really good up there. I sent some pictures to Seth. I think that was in the weekly report for y'all to look at. So that project got completed late Friday night on the flooring. Also, we'll be putting some new water fountains in there. That's part of some of the budget for that happened. And also, maybe redoing the basketball court. That's been a challenge, but we're still trying to find some folks to get some prices in on that as well. So also sports center equipment. Me and Seth have been talking about it. We're going to probably pin that down and order it this week. We're looking at 6 to 8 weeks for it to come in. We're going to try not to close the facility down. We're going to try to. I met a gentleman the other morning that the city's buying the equipment from, and we're going to try not to shut the center down, the sports center down while that's going on. We're going to try to maneuver the way, maybe shut half of it down. We still have folks in there, but we're going to try to figure it out and make sure it's not closed at any time. Our best for that to happen. Our basketball is wrapping up. They are playing now. We finish up Saturday for championships. If you get bored at home, come down and get you some basketball in your blood. It will be wide open. We will be hosting a district tournament for the boys, the 10 and 12 year boys at the Sports Center, February the 23rd and 24th. That's a Friday and a Saturday. That will be cities in the surrounding area that will be playing in that. Also, our baseball is growing. We're at 485. We're up from last year. We're up about 2 teams in each. Girls softball is growing. We're getting people just moving in Mauldin. We're getting some folks from Simpsonville that just came over and want to try something different and came into Mauldin and they're playing. Lacrosse is up a little bit. We've got about 75 players. In flag football, we've got roughly 200 kids, and we're still doing signups. They were signing up when I walked out the door today, and so people just forget. We try to extend that sign up because I hate for a kid not to go to play because mom and daddy might have forgotten to sign them up, and so we are still taking signups in all 3 of those sports. Softball included, and that is it. I do want to say something real quick. Both police and fire have 2 employees that either there's their mother or their wife, I won't say any names, but she's fighting cancer. She's a jail man girl, but she's got a Mauldin heart. She taught at Mauldin Elementary, and she's a tremendous mother and a wife and a friend. And so, you know, when you lay your head down at night, you know, sometimes you might think, hey, you have it rough, but there's somebody beside you got usually rougher than you. And so if you think about her, just put the prayers on her, and she needs it, and especially 2 employees as well. So that's all I have. Got any questions?
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark?
One quick question with you talked about trying to keep the sports center open. One, that's pretty amazing that you can think about trying to do that. I don't know why. But 2, would it make sense and be quicker if we shut it down and just did it the change over that way? What's the thing? I'm just curious.
Well, I was thinking about doing Friday night. We kind of close earlier on that day, and then even on a Saturday, we close around 2:30 on Saturday to see if that'll work. I don't want it to be a liability standpoint too when we're moving stuff in, something may happen. And I don't want them to be inconvenienced as well. So we want to try to come up with the best plans possible and get that stuff out there. We're going to either try to sell some of it, or we're going to see if the fire department needs some of it as well at the new location. Or we'll take some to the senior center as well. Based on the treadmill, if they're not too bad off, we take it up there because it doesn't get as much use as it does in the senior center.
I have just 2 quick questions. You mentioned that the basketball court, which is the outdoor basketball court, I think you're referring to, there were some challenges there. Is it a challenge of getting qualified bids?
Correct.
Okay.
We've got pretty much the bids lined up. It's just also we're going to paint. It's going to be a multi-purpose court. We want to put some pickleball courts out there as well. I would like to paint it and make it look nice. I think we have the money to do that, but just finding those folks to do that and pin them down to give you price. I met 2 or 3 of them, and they don't give me the price back to me. So that's what I've been just challenged to do, that is get the price from them.
So it's the painting of the lines.
Yeah, I think we've done that with the Springfield Park and Pine Forest Park, and I think that was it just makes it pop, makes it look a little bit better, and I think that's what we're trying to do. And so you have Roots that has popped through that basketball court at City Park. So Public Works has done a good job of trying to come up with a plan, see if we can do some of the in-house, but majority of an asphalt company would do it, and they would come in there and find a company that would mark it and then paint it. It's basically what they put on the tennis court.
Yeah,
that type of surface.
right. But the issue is finding someone who can do the asphalt or someone who can do the lines, or both.
Asphalt's not it's a big deal as getting it painted.
Yeah, getting the thing. That's what I figured. The other question was, you mentioned flag football. You're extending that. We have both genders who participate in flag football, boys and girls, and I'm just curious how's it looking on the girls' side?
The girls, Mark Steenback can probably tell you that as well. It's a mix. You might have 2 or 3 on a team. We try to balance that out. I coached 2 years ago, and I had 4 girls, and that was a challenge. I had one putting clover leaves in my shoe the whole time. If I shoot out there and I'm trying to coach, we just needed coaches, and so my son was playing, so we just needed some coaches. And so, yeah, that's a challenge, and it's, but the girls, and girls play basketball. We have a girls team, but some girls won't play with the boys.
There are a few of the girls out there that are quite good.
Yes.
All right, well, that's all questions I have. Up next, I think we have the trail naming process. I don't know if that's gonna be Bart or you. It's gonna be Seth, so Seth. Okay, you can tag the people as well. But this item obviously was something that we had discussed about naming the bridge, and we decided, hey, let's take a look at our company to look at providing us, or our marketing company to look, providing us an estimate on how they might go about this. So Seth, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So tonight, the committee is discussing or continuing the discussion regarding the trail branding and bridge naming for the city. Back in December, if you recall, the Recreation Committee supported the idea of releasing a request for qualifications in RFQ to explore the cost of branding for the city's trails and new pedestrian bridge. After further consideration, staff reached out to our city's on-call marketing and advertising firm, which is Drum Creative, and asked them to submit to us a project outline and cost estimate for the project. And so they returned back to us the Mauldin Trail System logo design, which includes stylescapes, provide 4 to 5 concepts in grade scale, a color study, we'll have full ownership over the final concept and a basic style guide, and they give it a project range of between $5,000 and $6,500. Then on the bridge naming and logo design, again, very similar, provide name options, 4 or 5 concepts in grayscale or color study. City will have full ownership and a basic style guide, and they estimated that to be $6,500 to $8,000. And then an implementation plan, which includes a more detailed style guide and implementation plan to go public, would be about $1,500. So at the max range for all 3 elements, it would be a total of $16,000. Should the committee forward to council positive recommendation forward, staff would suggest that we pay for this out of our H&A surplus, or not surplus funds, excuse me, H&A fund balance would be most ideal for that, since this is tourism related. And just as kind of a review, because I know some people are thinking, well, what trail segments do we have? How much trail do we have out there? Well, first off, we have the David Bates Greenway, which is off of Hamby Road and connects to Rock Bridge Road. East Butler to Bridgeway Station, that's the one that comes out just past Mauldin High School on the east side, right before you get to the little office park where Parks Dental is, and now the home of Green Colley's new location in the city, which is beautiful. And then, so we have that, we have the bridge, of course. Over in Pine Forest Park, we have a beautiful walking trail around that park there. There's one also at Sunset Park and City Park. And we have under construction or planned additional trail segments at Alston Towns. Don't go to sleep on me. Come back here. I'll take no tonight. City Center, we've got our next trail segment there. And then at East Butler, as part of the Butler Road Improvement Project, we'll have a 10-foot multi-use pathway on the north side that'll stretch from basically the Cultural Center to City Park. And so as we bring these segments online, the goal, of course, is to be able to connect iCar to Bridgeway as part of the Swamp Rifle Trail, and inside the city, that is part of the Mauldin Trail segments. So that's it.
Any questions for Mr. Duncan and Mr. Conley? I do have just one question in 2 parts. We asked for an outline. They provided just that, an outline, but they didn't provide any information in terms of timeline or how they would go about. So did you get any feedback from them on how long it would take them on this process and how they would go about the process?
No, sir, I did not have that information available for tonight.
But I can still ask. There's no representation from Johnson tonight, correct?
Yes, sir, not that I'm aware.
All right. What is the pleasure of this committee?
A motion to move to full council.
I have a motion to provide as presented to full council. I will provide a second discussion. There's no discussion. All in favor for pushing this forward to full council as submitted, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Passes 2-0, moving to full council. All right, there is no new business. We have our second public comment. Is there anybody else who would like to provide additional commentary? I got so excited we had public comment to begin with. It's the first time in no, it's the second time in 2 years.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yeah. For recreation.
I'm Dan Beaver. I live at 314 Maple Drive. I had a conversation with someone from the chamber that's in economic development. And I asked him a question about the Swamp Rabbit Trail and connecting Mauldin to it. Right now we have a bridge to nowhere. Is there a suggested plan that exists for connecting with the Swamp Rabbit Trail and a path?
So normally with public comment, we don't have a back and forth, but to answer that, yes, there is actively being a plan developed to eventually connect from Millennium all the way to the bridge. And then eventually, hopefully, we can eventually get the bridge to Simpsonville. So long term, yes, that's the goal.
Does it exist? Can it be seen?
At this point, I don't think we have anything that can be said. All right, Mr. Duncan?
No, sir.
All right, are there any committee concerns?
No, sir.
Hearing no committee concerns, what do we say on adjournment?
So moved.
Seconds? No discussion. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. We are adjourned at 6:38.
Call the second committee, actually the first committee meeting, but meeting second tonight. Finance and Policy Committee for, February the 5th. President is, myself, Carol King, Mr. Matney, along with our city administrator, Mr. Duncan, Holly Abercrombie, and our HR director, Mark Putnam. Mr. Reynolds is unable to be with us tonight. He is the chair of this committee, so I'll be sitting in his absence. The next agenda item would be public comment for finance and policy. If anyone has a comment for this committee, now's your time to speak. If not, you'll have another opportunity coming up. Great, seeing none. I guess we're here. Are you on Zoom? Good. Okay. Next, we have our reading and approval of the minutes from January the 2nd. What is committee's pleasure?
Move for approval as presented.
Motion for approval. I will second that motion. Is there any discussion, corrections, etc.? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from January the 2nd, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries unanimously. Reports from our city officers. Mr. Seth Duncan, our city administrator, is first up tonight. Mr. Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two quick updates. One, just wanted to bring to the committee's attention that just as a reminder, back in November 2023, City Council pledged to include $54,000 in the city's FY25 budget for the continuation of the Green Link route from 601, which serves both Mauldin and Simpsonville. Council made its pledge contingent upon the city of Simpsonville sharing in this cost as the route serves both communities. At a recent meeting, Simpsonville's city council delayed a vote on the matter and may not take it up again until March. Upon hearing the news, staff reached out to GTA leadership, that's Greenville Transit Authority, to inquire about potential options should Simpsonville City Council decide not to participate in the cost sharing agreement. GTA is still in the process of evaluating various options, including shortening 601 to serve just Mauldin, converting 601 into a Mauldin circular, and then unfortunately also the option of eliminating the 601 route. Approximately 11,171 rides were taken on the 601 connector through July of last year, a rate which was on pace to exceed the ridership total from 2022, which was just over 16,000. The route serves as a vital transportation option for individuals with limited transportation means, and is convenient to connect with employment centers, retail, and other points of interest. Staff will continue to monitor the situation and will keep the committee and council updated when more information becomes available. And the other item I wanted to mention was the city's contract with CGI to provide hosted videos on the city's website has expired. The contract required the city to host on our homepage a series of videos with advertisements that highlight the city. While the videos are good in quality and design, they've become dated. Instead of renewing with CGI, we'll be creating a series of videos that highlight the community, and we'll host them on the city's YouTube channel. That's what I have for tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Duncan? Mr. Matney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a question, but more of a statement. That 601 bus route is vital to a lot of people who live in Mauldin. It's vital to our employers to make sure that their employees have reliable transportation to get them to and from work. So at the appropriate time, I will move that we remove the contingency of Simpsonville's participation so that we are continuing to fund our share and making sure that our people are getting where they need to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But we have some time, correct?
Yes, ma'am. The route, if not funded, would discontinue July 1. So we do have time. And that's where we are kind of identifying different scenarios with GTA. So should Simpsonville decide that it did not want to continue its participation in that program, then we would have some options as to how we could modify it and continue it on under a different operational scheme. But I do know that the GTA folks are having kind of a ride and learn session with Simpsonville City Council on the 8th. And so 8th or 9th, Thursday this week. And so they've invited me to come along as well and to experience, what it's like to go from Mauldin to Simpsonville and back. So taking them up on that, and we're learning a little bit more about the Greenlink operations. But I echo what Mr. Matney said in that, yes, it does serve a vital link to connect those who need those transportation systems and availability. And so we're gonna do what we can to make sure we've got what we can, to provide council, the committee and council, a opportunity to make a decision.
Perfect, thank you for the update tonight. Okay, if no further questions, Ms. Abercrombie, you're up. Good evening. My favorite financial person.
Yes, so the budgets are looking pretty good for where we are at this time of year. We should get one more probably big property tax next week, and then it'll start tailing off, and then the next big one will be business license in April. And then just, you know, your calendar, I'm sure y'all have it marked for in March. The department head budgets are due Friday, and then I'll be working to get it together so that Seth and I can have meetings with each one of them and get y'all a budget in preparation for the first March meeting. So that's what's been going on in finance. If you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Ready? Good, thank you, Molly. Next up, Mr. Putman.
Good evening, committee members. Tonight we want to give you an update, high-level update on our municipal association insurance funds, which one is Smith, which handles our workers' comp, and then we have Smurf that handles our liability insurance. And in presentation school, they always taught you start with the good, so we're going to start with the good with Smith. And when you look at the key indicators, we were down in every section except for two. But we were down in total claims. We were down in medical only claims and notice only claims. And notice only claims are where we may have somebody cut their finger and we put a Band-Aid on it, but we let the insurance company know that just in case. You never know if you get infected, if this leads something later. But we were up in indemnity claims, and indemnity claims are where the employee may be out for experience, out for cannot work because of injury, or it may be an injury that might result in a final payout compensation because they lost movement of a finger or a hand or a foot or something like that. We were up there. But one thing that I would like for you to know is that the total incurred claims in 2023 were $55,317. I know that sounds a lot. But the average over, the annual average over 2018 through 2022 was $402,132, dramatically down. And I want to say there were two reasons for that. One, the department heads throughout the city have taken the safety of our employees to a new level, really making sure that everybody knows that safety is number one priority for no matter what you're doing. And then two, we went away from doctor's care as our workers' comp positions to Spartanburg Regional Corporate Health. And they specialize in nothing but workers' comp claims, making sure they get it in, get the right diagnosis, and get the employee treated and back to work as soon as possible. And those two things have helped us tremendously. Just a number of claims by department is kind of what you would think. Police lead the way, and then fire. But those are the folks that are out there. A lot of our claims with fire or something will fall and hit them during a fire or something like that. Police, believe it or not, most of it is when they're making an arrest. If there's a struggle, there's usually something of that nature. If you just look at page 4, if you have that available, the number one body part that gets hurt is a hand, and we're working constantly to make sure that we got gloves on, things of that nature. With that said, the biggest group that has accidents in the city of Mauldin, and we're putting an effort on this, is the employees that are here 1 to 3 years. Once you kind of get over that, it starts dropping down. So we're really working on the folks that are coming in, making sure that they understand what's going on and they have to be safe in everything they do. So that's it. With that, we will probably see a 7.5% decrease in that yearly cost. And hopefully what happens is you have an annual, annualized, pattern that we have to follow to see what will be charged. This year is gonna help tremendously in that going forward, because it lowers that average once that goes in. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, now we'll move to Smyrna. We are opposite there. We are almost up in every category. One that you'll look at is property costs, or the property cost claims. The amount there this year was $241,112 compared to an annual average of $4,266. You have to understand, the highest part of that was we had storm damage to the cultural center roof, which Matt will shake his head, ended up being a lot more than we thought it was gonna be. And then we had storm damage on the roof here. Both of those were north of $160,000, just those two. So had a lot of that. But again, with auto liability frequency of wrecks, we went up. With liability costs went up. So when you look at that, also slip and falls that we've had of citizens at events or things of that nature. When you look at it, just a second here to get where I'm at. On page 6, you'll notice that the Parks and Recreation that we just went was up a lot. They had 3 slip and falls this year that resulted in more than $26,000 worth of liability costs that we had there. So we're working on that. Matt's group actually came in. We had someone fall at one of the football games, and within 24 hours, we had that section that was really kind of rough. We probably should have done something about it sooner, but Matt and those groups had it as phenomenal what they came in and did. So it's not that we just report these and say, hey, we'll hope for the best. We go out and try to figure out how to make it safer for our employees and for the general public. Liability on auto, liability and everything, same thing that you would expect. It's the big 3. It's police, it's fire, and it's public safety, because they are out there driving more than anybody else. And that is something we're working on, trying to make sure that everybody's aware of how to drive safely, make sure that you do, and go from there. With that said, we will probably see an increase of somewhere around 24% on the Smyrna part. But we will continue to work on that, trying to get that down. As the year, especially with 224. Any questions there?
Just lived right through that bad news.
Yeah.
It's ready.
No, man.
Thank you
Thank you.
for the thorough report. Appreciate that. Don't go too far. There's no unfinished business, and new business is the employee handbook.
As we've stated before, the handbook is now 4 years old. Doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has, and it's time to update it. We passed out digital copies and hard copies to all council. We really want to hear what you guys have to say for either sections that you're interested in, themes that you're interested in, things you want to see added, or anything like that. So if you could, please bring that to us. We're excited to do that. We're also going to take a look at handbooks from local municipalities. We've got Fountain Inns coming, Simpsonville, Spreer, Anderson, and hopefully Greenville, just to see how they do it. Is there something different we need to take a look at? We're going to also be talking, looking around. We're going to talk with Kevin Strong. We're also going to look at the Municipal Association with their, what you call their handbook. And ours is really basically modeled on that. And we're going to continue looking at those. We're also going to listen to some employees. Maybe there's some worthwhile ideas that they have that we can change some things. Our main goal, our goal to have it finished is bring it back to committee in May of 2024 and say, hey, here's what, let's take a look at the changes and go from there.
Yeah, so I spoke with Mr. Reynolds earlier before the meeting tonight, and he said that he had reached out to all of not most council and reminded them that staff was looking, that you were looking for input. I don't think he received anything nature from any members of council. So for myself, I'll look forward to May when you come back and give us the update and what you all are looking at redlining and adding, et cetera. The only thing I would add, and I'm not sure if this is I guess it would kind of tie in with the handbook. Just for consideration, I'm not saying it needs to be done, but I've talked to you and Holly both about this, but would it make sense to align the holidays with vacation time? Because I think one is a fiscal year end and the other is a calendar.
Yep.
Just for the sake of simplicity, maybe something y'all want to think about, might not be.
No, that's something we've already discussed as department heads, and that makes a lot of common sense. And to the part that with the floating holiday, you know, it ended at a certain time, but your vacation had to be spent at another one. So we are gonna look to bring those into the same, which will probably be the fiscal year.
Okay. I was gonna say, don't rule out a calendar, because I know it's never been that way, but it doesn't mean they can't be.
Yeah.
And it may not be feasible to
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah,
but,
we are looking at that.
okay, perfect. Mr. Manning?
Good.
All right, we'll see you in May on the same topic. Okay, that brings us back around to public comment. Going once, going twice, seeing none. Committee concerns? Having none, what do I have on adjournment?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 6:59.
Call to order the Public Works Committee for February 5th. It is 7:01 p.m. And Mr. Reynolds is out. Hopefully will make it today. He is in a meeting trying to get here. And I have Seth, Duncan, City Administrator. See here, Mr. Fleeman's out there as well. All right. First, public comment.
I think this is where I'm supposed to talk, so if not, tell me to sit back down.
Please state your name and your address, and keep in mind it's about 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Linda Richards. My address is 19 Elkinet Way. I live in Indigo Point. And I was here to just kind of bring to y'all's awareness about, we have a really bad truck driver situation. I do have pictures. They're dated. When I first moved here, the truck drivers were turning around on Forester and Hamby Drive. And I live right in the townhouse. The truck drivers come up on the sidewalk, they've ruined our grass. The homeowners association has had to put sod down 3 times. So they worked with South Carolina DOT, and there are signs now. And then somebody put like sticks, like white and yellow sticks in the road, so they can't do that. It's wonderful, it worked. So I don't know if y'all had anything to do with that, but thank you. But now the problem is they're passing that, going to the next entrance of our neighborhood, and they're trying to make a U-turn. I know on the 31st, there was a ticket given to a truck driver from Canada. It was like 12:30, he's went up, got stuck, he cracked the sidewalk, tore up the grass. The police were called, and then on, the 1st, so that would have been the next day, I think. Another truck driver tried to do the same thing. He went off the road and shut down traffic. The problem is, and I wrote this down so I didn't forget, but it's the Food Lion. I've talked with the Food Lion, and the Food Lion through the Google Maps is taking the truck drivers, not the Food Lion truck drivers, because they know it's the other contracted employees. And it's taking them to the entrance that the workers go. And there's a big sign that says no trucks. And they've already passed their entrance and now they're stuck. They don't know what to do. And I understand because I've walked out and tried to help several of them. So if, we, just from the investigation and the talking, if Food Lion would put a better signage, like they do have a sign that's probably as tall as me that says all deliveries next right. But me compared to a semi truck, they don't see it. They don't know. If they would, do that and, make it a bigger sign, like light it, I'm not sure, that would probably help. Probably 90% of what we get the turnarounds are the truck drivers that are contracted, they're not from the Food Lion. And I do have pictures of the damages, the dates on the back. I can leave that with y'all. I'm not sure what can be done, but I'm just concerned because I have stood on the sidewalks and these truckers turn right in front of me. They come up on the sidewalks. And I know they're damaging our property, but someone's gonna lose a life. We have kids that go on those sidewalks from our neighborhood. And these truck drivers are just turning. So that's my biggest concern. Yes, it's upsetting because I pay for this, but to have a child or an adult that's injured is my biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, just for the information, we're not, proper rule, we can't comment back. At this
That's
time,
fine.
so
That's fine.
thank you. Any other public comments? All right, move on to reading and approval of minutes.
Motion to approve as submitted.
Second, any discussion? Discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. It's approved. Let's see here. Okay, reports and communications from city officers.
Thank you. So tonight, I was just gonna give you a brief update on the senior center roof. We sent out a RFQ. We received all of the follow-up bids. We had a public opening and the RFQ review committee has reviewed everything. We anticipate this week bringing a recommendation. It's what we expected to redo the roof. It's not gonna, there's gonna be no extra money requested. It falls in line with the budget, so this will be something that the city administrator will authorize. And we should see a very quick turnaround. The most responsible vendors were obviously the ones that have been working in the city hall, cultural center. As far as the roadway analysis, I reached out to the county. They're going to get back with me after the meeting this week. I asked them what additional information you could send forth. They just basically told us to just hold steady until they have further direction. And that is the update at this point.
Nothing on this, okay. So we move on to unfinished, correct?
Excuse me?
You're finished with the reports?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought, so make sure. There's no unfinished business, new business, stormwater fee analysis.
All right, I don't know if you've had time to digest. So I apologize. We've been looking at stormwater. We've done a lot of work in the last couple of years. We had KCI put together, a bunch of reports looking at issues where we had stormwater problems. They did a fee analysis. They kind of came up with a plan for us to move forward if we so choose. And this was presented in September. There were some questions from members of committee for me to kind of run some scenarios and kind of go more in depth than the cursory presentation that KCI put together.
So in your council packet for this week, or this month, excuse me, is a stormwater division plan. What I chose to do was to look at the problem that we have, and basically identify, hey, how, if we were to move forward, how would we do it? What's the framework that we could do it? So what I looked at was city ordinances, stormwater policies, budgeting, funding mechanisms. And what this report does is it breaks on each thing. When we look at city ordinances, you know, our stormwater stuff is scattered in different chapters and it's really disjointed. So the recommendation in this report is, you know, Public Works Committee will consolidate our ordinances to a stormwater ordinance. They will align with the stormwater policy. That'll come before committee and council to be approved if we go down this road. The stormwater policy in this report, I went ahead because it wasn't that hard, and I amended the stormwater policy, made a draft of what it would look like if we created a stormwater division. In the KCI report where they did the fee analysis, they kind of just looked at, hey, you're gonna have 4 or 5 guys are gonna do this work, there's a fringe package, this is how much it would cost, this is how much you can make. As someone who does, legitimate budgeting for city government, there's a lot more to it. So included in the report, there's a summary of a real budget. So, exactly in the same format that you would see when it comes to the budgeting cycle. We accounted for Social Security, state retirement, maintenance of vehicles, every gas and oil, everything that you would expect in a division budget. I provide narrative in the report to kind of go over why some things are in the budget. For instance, I allocated money for legal, basically legal fees, engineering fees, tree removal fees. And the reason for these inclusions in the budget just comes down to liability issues. We want to help everyone, the idea is to help everyone to address stormwater issues, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of infrastructure that's on private property, right? And no matter what anyone says, we can't go spend public dollars on private property. There's no way. It's just the way it is. So before we would do any project, we would have to have an easement of access and have all that paperwork completed for us to do any work. And so I'd imagine for every project, we're gonna have to talk with Daniel, we're gonna have to have easement documents drawn up, they're gonna have to be recorded. So we have to allocate, obviously, capital resources for that. Engineering fees really comes down to this. We go through the process, there's this pipe, we want to replace this pipe. It was a 15-inch, it was fine 20 years ago, but now it's getting inundated, it's not big enough. If the city came in and said, hey, well, we're just gonna replace it, we'll put in a 24, you do the easement documents, that's great. But the moment that pipe doesn't work, we design the stormwater system and then the city's liable for any failures. So in every project, if there's gonna be any modifications, we're gonna have to have a certified engineer basically design the modification. Additionally, Public Works, we chop down trees, but we're not chopping down trees on people's property. There's just too many inherent liability. We're not gonna fell a tree and hit a house. And then in the budget, we talked about some capital purchases. Obviously, we could start slow, we could do low-hanging fruit. There could be sharing of equipment so that we don't get blasted with capital purchases in year one. So then when we start talking about, well, now we know exactly what we have to do and how much it's gonna cost, we have to talk about a funding mechanism. So KCI originally gave a recommendation, and in the report, I show that at the recommendation of KCI that there's only $20,000 left over for capital projects. And if the goal is to take on big capital projects, you're gonna have to generate more revenue than what KCI recommended in this report. So with the idea being that the city would always have to have some retained earnings in order to leverage for grants. You need an expectation of $300,000 annually is what you want to set aside to cover capital, and you can leverage that for grant money and or bankroll it in the future for larger projects. You know, the gist of it is, in order to get that threshold, we have to have, you know, the associated rate presented in the report. And if you remember, when we originally talked about the stormwater fees, there was some question is, since a bulk of this money is coming from commercial, what impact would that have on some of our businesses in the city? Included at the end of the report is a summary of some of the, you know, GBS compacts, CSR, Kellett's, just a list of businesses, what they pay now, and what they would potentially pay with the stormwater fee, right? That is presented in the report.
That one, so the fee, current fee is that for the current stormwater fee?
Yeah, so the current fee is what they pay to the county. And then the proposed fee would be what the city would be receiving, and then obviously the total fee is the sum of the two counties. So this is not a recommendation. I'm not asking for any action. What you have in front of you is, you know, a framework to move forward if that is the decision of committee and council. This, the information presented in this report, the steps presented in this report, the fees presented in this report are essentially the bare minimum requirement that you'll need to do to move forward.
Questions? One thing I saw in here, I was looking at planning, I think your photos confused me a little bit on the budget. So I don't know if you just had that different placement. So it'd be a steamroller for everything.
Oh, the misprint?
Yeah, that's it. So did I miss under?
It should have been, it should have been on page 23, a roller, page 24, shoring equipment. Give the shoring equipment one.
Yeah, but it still says, it says sheet.
Oh, the name of project.
Yes, that's what I was saying, so you may want to change
The picture was changed, but.
yes, assuming the photo is wrong, or we're getting a bunch of.
Oh, yeah. Catch.
Yeah. We'll get that.
Get that, no problem. Well, yeah, get to the budget with it, we certainly can correct that.
The other thing is in your SL for your vehicles, I didn't see. Assuming we already have some of this equipment.
So, yeah, the intention, because the money would potentially be generated through tax, you wouldn't have the money until.
Yeah, I understood, but I was I expected more equipment to be in here. So we already have a good bit of this equipment needs to start.
Yes,
they'll be replaced in the future because of wear.
Yes, so I did not include it, but initially we would share equipment, but if every year during budget, we do a 10-year capital improvement. And so the capital improvement actually has the stormwater, potential stormwater division included in it. I wanted to keep it more of a cursory view at this point.
I'm fine, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Gotcha.
Mr. Fleeman, so you're looking at potentially 4 new staff members for this division, hypothetically.
That's correct.
For one, I appreciate the analogy and the budget workbook sampling, because it gives you kind of a bird's eye view. And you proved what I was afraid of when it comes to the commercial aspect of it. So it's my understanding this is just being presented tonight for us to kind of digest, and then we're gonna come back and reboot probably after the focus groups, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, that's correct. And really, we just want to lay it on the table so that way the committee members had a chance to review it. We know council members get the packet, they'll have a chance to look at it. And then that way, when we come back in March, we can have a larger discussion about the proposal here, which I think Ms. Fleming's done a phenomenal job at arranging it in a way that it does what I think the sense of solving some of these problems does. However, the fee aspect of it, we did model this one in particular because it fits the revenue needed in order to accomplish what we think from a staff perspective is the kind of minimum standard. We do have some other options, but if we were setting up our own division, this is what we do. But there's different ways to look at this, but we want to get this kind of version out, and then we can talk about, potential other options as well. Should the committee ask for some ideas.
So, there's no way to take the commercial, I mean, I know if we eliminate the commercial fee, then the residential fee obviously will have to go way up.
Yeah, the non-residential, the revenue generated is basically 3 to 1. So if you take non-residential out, you have to triple the residential.
But the problem is residential.
That is correct.
Not.
I am done. Thank you. Right on to, ordinance to sell Butler Road property.
Unless you feel comfortable doing it. Okay. I'll tackle it. Turn the mic on. Committee, so what we have before us tonight is, as you know, the East Butler Road improvement project is about to kick off. They have been in right-of-way acquisition. The CDOT has for the better part of a few months now. And so we have received our estimate or our appraisal for the property right here in front of City Hall, which attracts 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which essentially will expand the current right of way to add a turn lane onto 276, a dedicated turn lane. And with that, they are asking to acquire 5,161 square feet of land and all improvements thereon. But because we have some signs, memorials, we have a retaining wall, they're actually offering, as part of the appraisal offer, a cost to cure, basically a cost that we would incur, or that they're paying for us to move things out of their way. And so that brings the grand total of the appraisal and the offer to $110,558. We have reviewed their cost estimates for the cost to cure and have found them satisfactory. And so we believe that their numbers are sufficient for what it will cost for us to move those things. And so what we're asking for tonight is actually an approval of this appraisal. And so we can, through a quick claim deed with DOT, allow them to purchase that property. And in that, the city will receive $110,558, which we will then use to cure those movements that are required. And so we are asking the committee to make a positive recommendation to City Council for the sale of the property to SCDOT as stated in their offer.
I think, actually just, actual ask is just to do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to forward to full council the sale of the property at East Butler to SCDOT as stated in our packet.
I second. Any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. It moves to full council. All right. Now, onto the South Carolina, the grant contractors.
Yes.
Yes.
So what you have before you is a request to send to council for signature, contract between the city of Mauldin and Atlantic Coast Contractors, care of Fraser Engineering. This is all part of South Carolina Rural Infrastructure funding that we received. It's a part of a total $4 million sewer rehabilitation project. The grant is a little over, well, just short of $3.4 million. We put together the package, we listed on Skivo, we listed on our website, we followed all the proper procurement procedures. It is being, the program is being run by South Carolina Rural Infrastructure, but it is federal money, so there's a lot of requirements. So once all of the procurement process was completed, where we put out for bid, held an open bid meeting, got all the documents, that was reviewed, every step is being reviewed, and they have all come back as satisfactory at this point. So what we're asking is to go ahead and execute the contract with the Atlantic Coast contractors, so they can go ahead and start getting working on this project. And so what I'm requesting is that this contract get, through committee and forward to council.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to forward to full council the recommendation to execute the contract between the city of Mauldin and Atlantic as contractors for the sewer rehabilitation program.
That's seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Ayes have it. This will move to full council. All right.
Mr. Gordon?
That should do it. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. All right, public comment. Initial public comment. See none, committee concerns.
Is there another session for public comment? Or is this
This is the last one. If you'd like to. State your name and address and keep in mind 3 minutes.
Yep. My name is Phil Cochran, I live at 435 Bishop Drive, 28 years ago. Sharon and I bought a house in Bishop Heights. I come to this committee today for one reason, to commend council for your willingness to tackle a difficult problem, and that is stormwater. I am a transportation safety manager for Greenville County Schools. I basically manage transportation safety for every student in the largest school district in the state. We have 85,000 students in the district. If you've lived here any length of time, you remember how often we were in the news a few years ago for buses that were catching on fire, buses that were breaking down, buses that were sitting by the side of the road. And the reason for that was because we had not bought new buses for year after year after year. Imagine this, your kids were going to school on 30-year-old school buses. Sometimes that's the same thing that happens in a municipality. When regular maintenance isn't done every single year, you wind up having this horrible snowball like we did with buses that were at the end of their life, that were starting to have frame fractures. And there was no more life in the bus for us to repair or fix or make usable. And I think stormwater has kind of gotten that way. It's sort of snowballed and gotten out of control. So I commend Mr. Lehman and Mr. Crayley for saying, hey, let's find something that we can do about it. And I commend all of you, because what I'm starting to hear, which I didn't hear 25 years ago when I bought my house and it first started to flood, what I heard 25 years ago was, here's all the things that we cannot do. And what I'm starting to hear today is, here are the things that we can do. And I like that, and it makes me proud of my city, because I'm hearing you folks beginning to say, yeah, other municipalities aren't doing that. Other municipalities won't touch it. Other people won't do this. Other people won't do that. But you will. And I thank you for that. And I think you must. Because citizens like me, who every time it rains, we're up at night sucking water out of our homes, living in fear of the next rainstorm that comes up through the Gulf. And we've been doing it for 25 years. I've sucked water out of my home for 15 hours straight, gotten a shower and gone to work because the students of Greenville County depend on me to make sure that their school bus routes and their school buses are safe. And I think most of you have made those same kind of sacrifices. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. I am for a funding mechanism. And I will work tirelessly on social media. And you've seen me at work on social media before. I will work tirelessly to support the city for that funding mechanism. We may surprise ourselves that we can do things that others can't do. And why shouldn't Mauldin be known for that? Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, our public comments, community concerns. All right, what are your adjournment?
So moved.
Second, those in favor say aye.
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 Our Building and Codes Committee meeting at 7:31 p.m. in attendance. All good. Mr. Matney. Deer Hog. Who's over there? Table, Mr. Miller. Go ahead and move to our first public comment. Hearing none. Was committee's pleasure on minutes.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second. All in favor? Or I'm sorry, discussion? No? Corrections? None? Favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, none. Approved. All right, on to reports. Mr. Deerhog.
All right, good evening, members. Get comfortable here. Tonight I want to give you a report briefly on just what we saw last year, 2023. So hopefully this won't take very long, but we'll go ahead and run through the slides here. So First thing I'm gonna highlight for you in our report for 2023 is how we are growing, and most of this reports are gonna be about how we're growing. This chart right here shows the acres that we've annexed, and actually we've been tailing a little down on annexation over the last few years. So last year we didn't annex much, we annexed 17 acres, which ended up being for project at Chestnut Ridge. We did see 2 new subdivisions approved in the city last year that include Chestnut Ridge, Chestnut Reserve, which is 347 lots, as well as the Alston Towns, which is 99 lots. We also saw some a subdivision approved inside the fire district last year outside the city limits. That's for the Del Webb Greenville project, the former Legacy Pines Golf Club. And then just outside of our fire service area, within a quarter mile of the city limits, we also saw the county approve a project called Amberley, which is 55 homes. I'm including that and highlighting that in my report because we are impacted by the development as well that goes on in the county. On our next slide, we have our permits. This was a record-setting year last year for the number of residential permits that we issued. You can see that graph going up. Next slide, we highlight the new home permits. Again, record-setting year last year with the number of new homes we permitted, which was 716. We also have on this chart a projection of 2024 and 2025, and this projection includes the permits that we are expecting to issue for what we know about. These are subdivisions that have already come through the pipeline and have received approvals of one form or another. In addition to the nearly 1,500 new homes in the next 2 years that we anticipate, we also anticipate about 900 new multifamily or apartment type units as well. So continue to grow, we're continuing to see development and growth in the city. The next slide is our building inspections, record-setting year 2023 for the number of building inspections. It's amazing to see how much we've gone from about 6-7 years ago, where we were pretty steady in that 2,000 to 3,000 range for many years, and just to see where our building inspection numbers are today, much of our same number of staff. And then our commercial permits is kind of more or less a plateau. We see little bumps up and down from year to year on that. Nothing really out of the ordinary there. And then our next slide is on business licenses and contractors licenses. Again, we see just minor fluctuations year to year. What we saw last year is still fairly normal because what you see happen from year to year in that fluctuation generally involves the delinquent licenses. So some years we might get a business who's paying for 2 licenses because they were delinquent the year before. Or another year you might not get anyone from that business because they're delinquent. So we see minor fluctuations due to delinquencies, but for the most part we're been consistent there. Most of our licenses are for renewals of existing businesses, 84%. And then this last slide here shows just how that most of our business licenses we issue are for businesses physically located inside the city. So that's just a very brief, high level overview of the development we saw through my department in 2023. I'll give you, in addition, just a highlight for what we started to see for 2024 last month. We're still continuing to issue new residential permits. We've got 62 new homes that were permitted last month of January. We permitted some new businesses, including the Mercado, which is a new food establishment going into Bridgeway Station, as well as Whataburger that we've been hearing about for a while now, going into the old Kentucky Fried Chicken on West Butler Road. We had a new subdivision startup home building this last month of January. That's the Bethel Towns community, which is on Bethel Road. They're gonna have 78 townhomes in that community. And that's the report that I have for you tonight.
Questions?
Oh, I need to mention Exit Grill too is permitted over the Crescent Escape. Sorry.
Some of us are more excited about that than others.
Yeah.
The biggest one, right? The biggest one.
That's the most important, right?
All right, thank you, sir. No questions there? All right, moving on to our next is the unfinished business. And I believe, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We talked about this a little last month about consideration for drive-through standards in the Central Redevelopment District. And we had someone give you a little bit of information about a new potential business that might be going next to the Mauldin Station Vet Clinic for summer moon coffee. And so what we have for you tonight, just to kind of continue that discussion, is a possible draft ordinance you might consider. The essence of this draft ordinance is that it would allow for drive-through facilities in the Central Redevelopment District on a limited basis. It would be for properties that had operated a drive-through at any point in time between January 1 of 2022 and December 31 of 2023. This essentially would allow drive-through operations to continue or be established at Sully Steamers, Tropical Grill, the former BB&T building, and Dairy Queen. These draft standards would allow for a drive-through facility at those properties, provided that the queuing lanes for those drive-through facilities would not directly be accessed by any new streets that we develop or build or construct in the Central Redevelopment District, specifically with the Jenkins Court extension in mind that we're working on right now. So this is being presented for you to receive any input or feedback you have on this. If this is something that you want to continue moving forward, the next step for this would be for it to go to the Planning Commission. But this is being presented for your feedback tonight. And if you have any questions about Summer Moon, we do have our applicants or our representatives for that project, both Mr. Charles Garcia and Stuart Wyatt, with that property available if you have any questions for them.
Questions? Mr. Hogan?
I have really just kind of two questions here. One, we say new drive-through facilities are generally prohibited within this district. I take it that we have to say generally because of what we're getting ready to say in the next few sentences.
Yeah, it's prohibited except for the following.
Except for the following.
Yeah.
And when we say drive-through facilities, could this potentially be interpreted as a change in how Sully Steamers operates because they have a pickup window? Could they therefore come back and say that this could be a full-blown drive-through service?
Yeah, this would allow them to add an order box if they so chose. If they can provide the necessary queuing. Now that part might be tricky for them. We do have queuing standards in our ordinance, so they would have to be able to accommodate a drive-through lane so that there would be enough space for vehicles to queue up in accordance with what's required by the ordinance. So while this ordinance will let them be able to entertain that, the way they're configured right now, they'd have to make some physical modifications to the site to establish the drive-through lane that would meet queuing standards, because I don't see how they would meet that right now.
And as a reminder, Mr. Olga, the parking lot is open to the city.
Or, you know, no.
Oh yeah, we got a little control over that too.
So in that instance, we would be able to restrict potential queuing because we own the parking lot.
Yeah, this is not what I thought we would come back with, but because you are putting in those set dates, and I can't think of any other properties that would fit within those dates, I think you're right, it's limiting to just those three establishments. And therefore would prohibit anything else. That's all the questions that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I keep going back and forth on this. Because on the one hand, this property was slated to have a drive-through for a previous project. And knowing that, I have a tough time saying that we wouldn't allow a drive-through now.
But at the same time, we were very intentional in the design of our CRT standards in not having drive-throughs for very specific reasons, primarily the walkability throughout the entire area. So, I mean, I wouldn't oppose this going to full council to get additional input, because I think that it is a serious enough matter relating to the CRD that everybody needs to be able to have the ability to present an opinion and for us to have some discussion. But when it's all said and done, I honestly don't know where I'm going to follow you.
Thank you.
I actually have one question.
Go ahead, yes, sir.
Possibility, this is why I'm asking, queuing lanes. Would the firehouse that we have technically be considered a queuing lane if that property ever got turned into a restaurant of any kind?
No, if you're asking, would we consider allowing a drive-through facility at that building in accordance with this ordinance, the answer is no, because it has not been established as a drive-through facility. And it doesn't meet those definitions. While I know you're talking, you know, I know you're thinking of, well, they have a queuing lane for the fire trucks to pull in, right?
Right.
But we have drive-through facilities, and I have it on my iPad, so I don't have access to it right now, but we have it defined very specifically that would not include that building.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo Mr. Matney's quandary a bit, for maybe a little bit different reason. I'm the father of 4 children, and when I say one thing for one, all 3 expect that every, you know, they get the same treatment. And so my concern is that we make some sort of expectation, and then we set some sort of public expectation that, well, we're gonna set these guidelines, but if something better comes along, we might not actually follow the guidelines we set. And I'm not sure exactly how I feel about that at this point. But I do think, yeah, I do think there's merit both ways. So what do we say? What's the pleasure of our committee here?
I'll make a motion to pass along to the full council for approval.
Would be full council or would be?
Generally,
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, send it to the planning commission. Thank you for that correction.
Second. Second, all those in favor of moving on as written to planning commission?
Aye. Aye.
All right. Opposed, like sign none. All right. Carries, move on. New business. That's you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next item for business is an ordinance that would amend our zoning ordinance, establishing new regulations for temporary uses and structures. This is primarily geared at updating our regulations for events and food trucks. And so in your report, I've kind of outlined how our current standards work. And you can see that there's just a few categories of events that we address in the current ordinance. Most of those require a permit, although not all. For example, if you can have a fundraising event that does not require a permit. Private non-commercial event that does not require a permit, as long as it's only on one day, doesn't have more than 100 people, doesn't have a food truck. Any other type of event requires a permit. And when it comes to food trucks, they have then an additional, they're only allowed to go at permitted events, and they have an additional set of standards they have to follow. They have an additional set of procedures they follow. We've heard comments over the years, it's very hard. So the draft ordinance that I have prepared for you this evening changes that quite a bit. The draft ordinance goes to the extent of identifying and listing events that we would put forth as exempt from a permit. And these represent events that we've typically seen in the city. and to our knowledge, have not really presented any issues or problems. Those types of events that would be exempt from a permit include outdoor promotional events for less than 200 people and not more than 2 consecutive days. Private events, such as weddings, funerals, private parties, not open to the general public. Events sponsored or hosted by the city of Mauldin. Events at churches, sports facilities, schools, auditoriums, and similar places of assembly, which are, as a place of assembly, generally are set up to handle the people who assemble for an event. Events at common areas and residential neighborhoods. This has been something that's we've seen more and more requests for over the last since COVID. Events at Bridgeway Station, and then garage sales and yard sales at residents, which is kind of a different category, but we want to make sure we keep that in there because it's a current exclusion. And then for food trucks, we've simplified their procedure quite a bit. They're still only allowed to operate at events that either are permitted or exempted by the city. And they are still required to come in and get a business license and hospitality tax registration. But as long as they are operating an event that we allow, either at a level of it being permitted or exempt, and they get the business license and register for their hospitality tax, they're allowed to go ahead. We used to have a whole list of different type of documentation that they had to submit, a little overkill, so we've simplified that a lot as well. The main documentation now that they would simply be required to submit is copy of their driver's license, vehicle registration, proof of general liability insurance for the operation of that vehicle. And then our forms that we established. So this was our crack at, based on the feedback we received, at providing a more business friendly approach to events and food trucks. This has gone to the planning commission for their review and input, and they did have some input and made a few minor modifications to the ordinance, but at this time, this is being presented to you now with their recommendation of approval for your consideration as to whether you want to forward this on to the council.
Thank you, sir. Question? Ms. Matty? Really just a comment right now, but if anybody is having a food truck at their funeral, let me just go ahead and apologize for not knowing them in advance, because that sounds like a pretty cool person that I wish I would have known. I know that we've had a lot of groups over the past couple of years have issues in being able to provide an area for food trucks to operate for their events. I know that you said that you've gotten a lot of stakeholder feedback. Can you give me some examples of what people have said when you've presented this to them and said, here's what we're looking at doing?
Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't had to go out there and solicit the feedback. It's all been still coming to me in the last 30, 60 days. So even just today, we were meeting with representatives at Brookfield who are want to have the ability to bring in food trucks for their employees that work for the companies that are present in Brookfield. And they had commented that, man, it's been really hard in the past for us to do that. And you guys got so many hoops that we have to jump through. And so we indicated to them what we are working on right now. And their comment back was, oh, that would be just wonderful if this gets adopted. We've had other companies recently who want to have like grand openings and stuff like that. And again, they've had to go through the hassle of getting permits and all that stuff, and it's made they've said it's made it very difficult for them to hold even just like their grand opening events that they do. So they've commented that they like what we're looking to do here. For some, well, the cultural center is a little different, but I know the cultural center staff is very excited about this because they view that this will make it easier for them to bring food trucks to their events, and especially with not having to require all the documentation that we do right now. Just right off the cuff, those are the most recent experiences that I can relate back, that the feedback we've gotten on this approach that we're presenting.
Yeah, I just know that when Mauldin High School held its 50th anniversary celebration at the Cultural Center, one of the, or several of the comments that the organizers had from food truck operators were that it was too difficult to do business and they didn't even want to try and talk about setting up food trucks. So the fact that we're eliminating those barriers and cutting out what you even said was overkill on paperwork, I think that that's fantastic. Plus, I think we've kind of been hypocritical in allowing food trucks to operate so easily for Beach and Fridays, or when we've had food trucks for employee appreciation, and we don't allow the same standards for private business and industry. So I think it's a good move, and I thank you for all the work that you put into it. So,
Couple of questions. The regulations that we talk about where it says you're not allowed to set up within 250 feet of a restaurant, having a restroom available within 300 feet, or does that all that still apply?
So the 250 feet within a restaurant does not. We kind of took a look at that, and honestly, we've never run into a situation that we know of where someone who went through all the efforts to get a permit for an event was not able to get some written note from a restaurant within that distance to set up. And so it seemed like that was just another thing that was creating hassle for the event organizer to do. At the end was, they were always able to get it, but it took sometimes some effort to get in touch with whoever they needed to find to get that permission. So knowing that we've limited the number of days that someone can have an event out there, it's limited to 2 days here. We don't necessarily anticipate that that will be an issue, since it seems like our restaurants have already been in the habit of saying, oh yeah, this is fine, go ahead and have your food truck there at your grand opening event or whatever you're doing. So we've taken that out. The restroom facility is still a requirement, but we've not specified that distance. In fact, that came up today as a question from folks at Brookfield who asked about that, because that's been a challenge for them on where they set up in their massive parking lot. They have to come all the way in to their front entrance nearly so that they can meet that distance requirement. All this does is says that there needs to be restroom facilities available, but we have not specified that it has to be within a certain distance of the food truck.
Under 735, number 1, it says number of mobile food sales vendors. The maximum number of mobile food sales vendor allowed at a site at one time is 1. Would that technically negate us being able to have food trucks at our cultural center for the various events that we have?
Cite for me one more time that section you're reading from.
Sure, it's 735
G.
Under G1, number of mobile food sales vendors. The maximum number of mobile food sales vendors allowed at a site at one time is 1.
So this was only intended to be where a food truck is going either to a place of business where they're bringing it in for their employees to eat, or at a construction site. The reason for that is so that it doesn't create this perception for Joe Public driving by that says, oh man, look, there's a food truck festival going on there, look at all those food trucks. Because the intent of this is not to be open to the public, they're bringing in a food truck to serve specific employees of a business, maybe so that their employees can go out, enjoy lunch real quick, and then get back into work, really.
Right.
We've had a few companies over the years who have had interest in doing that. So the only reason for the limitation on 1 on that, again, is just to avoid perception that there's some type of a food truck event going on that would draw in public. But certainly that's open for modification if you want to change that.
Well, I just want to make sure we weren't limiting us to be able to have multiples of location, and even if it was let's say it was a neighborhood who was bringing a food truck and they chose to bring in 2, Could they not bring into? Or
They can, so this doesn't apply to any of those other types of events. It's only for major employers who bring in food truck for their employees and for construction sites.
Okay. Much like Mr. Manning was talking about the funerals, I would love to see a garage sale that goes on for 30 days. That was interesting too.
And that's a carryover from what our current standard is, so I didn't want to mess with that.
When we talk about portable storage containers, again, this probably is nothing to apply here, but just bringing it up just to make sure we cover all our bases. If someone had turned a portable storage container into a shed in their backyard, that becomes a permanent fixture, correct? That would not be.
That would not apply to this, yes.
I do request one modification for this, on 737. Number 6, the sale of alcohol beverage. We say at the very end, if he determines that the proposed activity does not protect the health, safety, or general welfare of the community, he may deny the sale of alcohol beverage, referring to our Mauldin police chief. I would rather just go ahead and say he or she, not knowing the future with the other female chief of police.
We can do that.
That is all the questions that I have on this.
It's all good. Two really, and actually in the section we were just looking at, there were two things, and I don't know if we, just to highlight that maybe are a bit of a concern for me because of what we're trying to do here is trying to make it as easy as possible. We talk about number 3, we require the inspection by the fire department, and then actually what Mr. Algo referred to, we require the police chief to give approval as well. Just want to make sure that that isn't one of those places where this gets bogged down and we don't really, I mean, you know, that whatever that process looks like, that it's efficient and quickly done.
Yeah, I don't think it should be a problem. The food trucks right now are accustomed to getting their food trucks inspected by the fire department. They've been pretty responsive on that. They really can almost just drive over and show up and they have an inspection. So that's not been an issue. And then the last one with the police chief is just gonna involve when there's applications for alcohol. And that's actually already part of that process as they go through the Department of Revenue.
Any other questions, concerns? Have a motion. Move forward to council with recommendation for approval.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's unopposed, there are none, motion carries. All right, that takes us to our second public comment. With no public comment. We have thoughts of adjournment. So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.